Ikenne local government alongside his wife Dolapo. The vice president described the vice president described the process as peaceful so far. Voting disrupted as thugs hijack election materials in Kogi. There are reports of ballot boxes snatching in Ayagba, Kogi State as the presidential and national assembly elections are still underway. The process was disrupted when some hoodlums invaded the area. It is not yet clear if the security agencies have intervened and whether the stolen materials have been recovered. Amid Naira scarcity, politicians get creative. Share meal tickets to Nigerian voters. Nigerian politicians have devised creative ways to induce voters during the general election amid Naira note scarcity. Sahara reporters gathered that agents of the ruling All Progressive Congress and People Democratic Party gave meal tickets to residents in Sokoto State to motivate them for their voting parties. Thank you. Right now, we'll be taking calls from people outside, so they can actually call in to tell us the situation of things in their area. So the numbers to call in we have here is 070-4994-1413. I'll be taking that number again. 070-4994-14 and 13.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am Olanrewaju Suraju, the chairman of Human and Environmental Development Agenda, a civil society non-profit organization incorporated in Nigeria and headquartered in Lagos, Nigeria, and also the chairman of the Civil Society Network Against Corruption, a network of over 150 non-governmental organizations, individuals, researchers, and also investigative journalists are working on anti-corruption, transparency, and accountability in governance in Nigeria. I think this 2023 election is really going to be interesting, and it's as usual that you will have an election where the incumbent is not a contestant on the ballot box. It's usually very highly contested, and it could be very heated, like you're seeing with the current situation. This is a situation now that we will need to not only be vigilant to ensure that we don't allow saboteurs to provoke such situation where we would not have the election, or there would be possibly doctrine of a necessity that would be different from the constitutional provision that would truncate the democratic consolidation of the civilian regime currently operational in Nigeria. So I can see the readiness of the people to actually go to the poll. We can see the usual campaign, sometimes the campaign of calumny, fake news, fake information, misinformation going around in the media. I mean, that you can expect in a toxic situation where the politicians are contesting under the available political parties. We have quite a number that are used just for the opportunity to get into power. Is pervaded with so much of these negative campaigns that are also devoid of concrete, proposal on how the candidates are transforming or likely going to transform the situation or change the paradigm of what is the current trend. What you just see many times are just promises without any clear-cut roadmap towards achieving those promises. The other point is the readiness of the INEC, and I think to a very large extent as an institution, we can say INEC is ready. But with some of the individuals in INEC, and the irony of it is the fact that people actually make the institution and the machines that we have in INEC are operated by individuals. If we go by what's recently happened in Osun State, where it is clear beyond any form of suspicion to an average observer, and as also stated clearly by the tribunal, some elements in INEC are not yet in tandem with the prevailing situation of the electoral law and the aspiration of Nigerians to have free and fair election come 2023. So it means the INEC will not only just be relying on its deployment of machines, it would have to also monitor its officials. The anti-corruption agencies must also be part of that process to beam such light on all the electoral officers. We can't stress all of them to the extent of monitoring every polling unit and all the rest of that with the law enforcement and anti-corruption agencies, but it's possible to put some of the major players and their families in INEC under a very serious scrutiny to monitor if there's any form of movement of fund either into their accounts, the accounts of their family members, friends, and also sometimes enablers who act as professionals for them. That is only when we can only be said that INEC is fully ready. The other point is that the party agents for all the parties must ensure that after every election at every polling unit, the total number of vote cast must be cross-checked with the total number of accredited voters on the BVAC machine that are used. That is one of the greatest ways to ensure that some compromised officials of INEC are not allowed to sabotage what is happening within the process. Yeah, I totally believe that we're lacking, grossly lacking in credible candidates, particularly when you look at the topmost leading political parties. Those are parties where you don't have, credibility as part of the process of selecting the presidential candidate. If credibility is going to be used, Peter Obi would not be the presidential candidate for Labour Party, because Peter Obi does not have any credible background that would align his antecedents with the philosophy of the Labour Party or even the manifesto of the Labour Party. So he lacks the integrity to fly the ticket of the Labour Party. And the same thing goes to the ones that you have both in APC, the one that you have in PDP, the one that you have also in NNPP. Those are the four political parties. If you look at what they've actually been involved with in terms of the MPP person who has moved from APC to PDP and then now to MPP, I mean, where do you want to derive such credibility from other than the only personal aspiration of becoming the president, which had influenced the junketing from one political party to the other, and that is after being governor, being minister, and all the rest of that. I mean, with the antecedent of Atiku as the vice president and the economic sabotage that visited these activities in the mismanagement of our national heritage and properties, I think he should rather be grateful that he's not in jail, more or less to be talking about becoming the president of Nigeria. And when you look at the candidate of the APC, with also the allegation of the baggage of drug charges or funds traced to drug dealings, that were connected with him as a person, and also you look at some of the other allegations about what happened in Lagos, I think it would have been challenging for any of serious political parties to have such characters, as candidates of their political parties. I mean, the ones where you would be talking about candidates with integrity are not given the opportunity and the chances to be in that leading position of potential emergence as the president of the country. And it takes people with this kind of characters to actually be in the candidacy of political parties that are with the chances of electoral victory. I see the increased number of registration as a good indication that we should also not just celebrate, but take very serious advantage of by ensuring that the new registered voters on the INEC registration list should be encouraged to come out and vote, not just get registered and for the purpose of using the registration card for means of identification, but to be used for the purpose of casting votes on the election day. So there's a need, and I think some of the political parties, which is supposed to be the role of the political parties really, is to ensure that electorates are encouraged, motivated, mobilized to actually go and vote on election days. Gone are those days when people are intimidated at the polling unit or polling stations and prevented from, performing and discharging their civic responsibilities. So it would be good to see how people will really turn out and come out to vote on that day. I'm not really seeing both the fuel scarcity and the cash crunch as any form of serious deterrent for people to vote. It should actually be the motivation for people to go out and cast their vote, either to vote out people that they dislike or to vote in people that they like. So it is important, if this is happening to them, they should take the advantage of when the hunger is still very hot, to take a very serious decision that they have the power to change the trend, and also to change for all of them to change their situation without waiting for any to do that for them. I think the voter inducement situation is really going to suffer a huge effective blow under this current situation, with the level of mobilization that is going around in terms of the campaign against the vote buying stuff, with the amount of involvement of the anti-corruption agencies and law enforcement agencies. You are likely to also witness some significant reduction in that trend. And I also would want to believe, and now that also there's the cash crunch, I wish some of us was really a good indication for which it will be extremely difficult for the traditional vote buyers to have, the liquid cash to throw around. It is really going to reduce to a very large extent that propensity for financial inducement during the electoral period. Yeah, I see the very low potentials for violence. It's some of that quite in the hands of some of the politicians who really want to get people seated in their houses for the fear of insecurity and also for the purpose of safety, to sit back at home and not vote. I can't see any serious potentials for violence under the current situation. And I am very sure that except the violence is going to be state-induced, it is going to be extremely difficult for people to instill violence in the system and get away with it. So the roads are usually free. So for people who would perpetuate some of those violent activities or disruption, it should be extremely very easy for them to be apprehended by the law enforcement agencies. So where that will happen and the perpetrators will get away with it, it is not the criminals who will perpetrate this level of violence that are to be held responsible, but rather the government of the states where it is happening, and also somehow the federal government where it happens in Abuja and the rest of that. But where you have any form of violence within the election, it can only be induced by the states or by the collaboration with the states. So people should be sure that it is a civic duty, and we should not in any way be intimidated from discharging that civic responsibility. One of the best way also to confront this is for people to troop out en masse. The fewer the number of people at the polling units or out there to vote, the easier it is for people to disrupt, the smooth running of the electoral process. But where you have the expected massive or the unexpected for them and the expected for some of us, turnout of these 93 million people coming out to vote. I mean, I can't imagine, disruptors being even up to 1 million. So that would mean that we have an overwhelming majority out there that can, in any way, easily subdue any attempt by some miscreants to disrupt the electoral process. So the massive turnout of people and also the consciousness of the people for those that could be spotted around them who doesn't belong to either their community or their strange faces, and the ability to spot them early enough for adequate mobilization of the citizens to repel any attempts to disrupt, and where they have the opportunity also call the security officials to assist. That would go a very long way in dealing with the threats of any form of disruption. Yeah, I mean, our politicians and our lawyers have been at the center of this unfortunate development in the country. It is rather unfortunate that people who, for whatever it is, know it deep down in their hearts that they're not entitled to some of the developments or even political gains and the rest of that, would want to rush to the court, and you would find lawyers also who will not only encourage them in this, but will go there to fabricate all manners of stories and look for every technicalities that can be used for the miscarriage of justice or get undeserved victory for people who are there, who are getting what. And that was what you saw, not just in Bayelsa and the rest of them, but what you've just seen in the case of the former minister of Niger Delta, Godswill Akpabio, and the current Senate President, Lawan, where the Supreme Court actually gave them the ticket for elections in which they never participated. I mean, there's nothing that can erode the people's mandate to elect their representative than what we're just experiencing. I mean, the ones that we've experienced in the governorship situation can be excused to some extent where you want to look at technicalities and you want to look at issues. But the one that is extremely, difficult for you to swallow is where, even though the law prohibits anybody from participating in the primaries to two separate different offices, you have seen these people who contested for the presidential convention and never participated in the senatorial convention and primaries for their party. But the Supreme Court, in what we can't call their wisdom, because there's no really wisdom in this, has allocated, that ticket to them without any form of justification in the minds of the ordinary man on the street. And that is why it is said that justice must not only be done, but must be seen to have been done. I can't see how anybody would see justice being done in these cases. So it is extremely difficult, and there's really nothing the ordinary people can do about this, because people will have voted for candidates that they think that they are supporting. And on the emergence of such candidates, some disgruntled contestants will get to the courts, because our courts have been considered to be the cash and carry, where the highest bidder gets judgments and nobody really gets justice. So that these other guys are going there to just get judgments that would go in their favor. And the courts are not in now situation. Majority of our courts are not dispensing justice, but rather judgments. So I think it will be the duty of the civil society and the media to beam the searchlight on many of these cases, isolate them for proper analysis, and continue to document them for our court judges, such that we can have something where we would also call them out, the injustices they would have done to our system. Yeah, I mean, my final word for the voters simply that we should be encouraged, we should be resolute, we should not be distracted. We have a day with history on the 25th of January, and also on the 11th when we have the gubernatorial election and the other ones, to ensure that we vote for those that we believe in. And we should not allow any form of inducement to dictate our choice of candidates to be voted into office. We have a duty to that, and then we also have the duty to monitor what happens during the voting process. It is not just enough to cast your vote and then go home to sleep. We have a duty to see what is done with the process of the voting, and then the outcome of the voting, and also the counting of the votes. To our law enforcement agencies, I think it is important at this critical period that the effort should not be on the politicians alone. It should also be on INEC officials, like I said, and we should be graduating to where we might, at this stage, also have some of our law enforcement and the financial intelligence also monitoring situation activities around our judicial officers and also family members, to be sure that even when they make mistakes in their judgment and rulings, it is honest mistake and not that is born out of any form of financial inducement. And for us as civil society and the media, this is another responsibility for us to ensure that we have our contribution towards guiding the fragile civilian rule that we have in the country, and ensuring that elements who are not comfortable with the electoral or with the peaceful electoral transition process are not allowed to derail the process.
It's a pleasure having you on Sahara TV again today, Rotimi.
Always a pleasure being with you.
Let's take a deep dive into this discussion. First, recently, Blueband had an interview with the President General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, and he was asked to rate his performance on the three key metrics: anti-corruption, economy, and security, upon which he campaigned. And despite the widespread insecurity and the worsening economic situation in Nigeria, the president says his administration is leaving Nigeria in a far better place than they found it. What's your response to this?
But he said the truth.
How do you mean?
Okay. The truth is sometimes not what we think it is. It is what the speaker of the truth believes the truth to be. If the speaker of the truth elects to be subjective in stating the truth, what you need to do is take a man at his word and then properly dissect what he is saying to you. The man says he's leaving Nigeria in a by far better state than he met it in relation to the anti-corruption battle, the economy, and security. But he's told you the truth. The question is, what does better mean within the context of General Buhari's usage? I think we should be careful to listen to the man and take him at his word. Incidentally, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, Facebook and the internet has a memory worse than an elephant. So I was checking my memories this morning, and I saw a place where I had said, just indulge me for a second.
Please take your time.
I said, the only reason why General Buhari has not done anything about the insecurity and the several stress. Okay, so I said on June 25th, 2018, I said, why has it been impossible for Buhari to stop the killings in the Jos Plateau? I asked that question and I then answered it. I said complicity and rank indifference. This was back in 2018, 4 years ago. I said that. I think on the same day, on the very same day, I said Plateau, Taraba, Benue, when will enough be enough? And at what point would Buhari and his apologists admit that he is both incompetent and complicit? This was said on June 25, 2018. That is 4 years ago. That is because I was judging Buhari based on the objective realities that I could see. Buhari would believe that he has succeeded insofar as security is concerned because Buhari is the principal destabilization agent in the Nigerian state. Buhari does not configure the interest of the Nigerian state or interpret them in the same way that you and I interpret them. The principal motivation behind Buhari's exertion at any point in time is not what is good for Nigeria, it is what is good for the Fulani. So when you begin to interpret his words within the prisms of those interpretations, you use those parameters to interpret his words, you begin to understand why he would tell you that the security situation in Nigeria today is better than he met it. It is better within the context of the Fulani's design for Nigeria, which is a design of conquest. So the security architecture of Nigeria has been compromised to the point where the Fulanis are running riot across the length and breadth of Nigeria. So yes, Buhari is quite correct within the context of his own strategic objective in saying that he has left Nigeria security-wise better than he met it. So let's be clear about that. It is when you elect to interpret it based on your own expectations of Mr. or General Muhammadu Buhari that you end up with your fallacious conclusions. You must take the man at his words and stop finding reasons beyond what he has offered you. That is one. When you look at anti-corruption, Buhari could never afford corruption. There was no way Buhari could afford corruption. It is delusional for anyone to have expected Buhari to fight corruption. How could he afford corruption? The APC is a conglomeration of base crooks, outright thieves, and political contractors and jobbers. Same as the PDP that it supplanted at the federal level. There is no difference between them. They cross carpet every day. How could they afford corruption? Tinubu is fundamental to the creation of the APC. There is nobody more criminal in reflexes and intention than Bola Tinubu. Is about capturing a state. So how could you have expected Buhari to fight corruption? So when he said he is leaving Nigeria in a better place, what he's telling you is that he has successfully instituted the reign of impunity where people sit on the throne of corruption and are preaching probity. In the history of this country, it has never happened that so many integrity challenged persons are sat in the federal cabinet. It has never happened. Even in the 8 days of the PDP, it was decent enough, shamed enough to try to pretend not to be corrupt. Buhari has proven the lies of the noise of anti-corruption. Anyway, that is to those who imagined that he was going to be doing any anti-corruption. Go back to my essay published in The Guardian in February 2015. Before his election, I made it clear he wasn't going to do jack. Shola Saraki was there. Mr. Panama Papers. Tinubu was there. Orji Uzor Kalu. Every odious collection. It was always a motley crew of thieves. So yes, he has done well because he has given immunity to each and every one of his class. So whether they are in PDP, APC, it doesn't matter anymore. There is class impunity for the Nigerian reigning class. So what he has done successfully is to extend impunity across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Even the Supreme Court is no longer insulated. So how could he be anything but successful with his anti-corruption circus? He's been very, very successful, and he's right to rate himself as he has done. The other one is the economy. You see, I spoke extensively over time to the weaponization of poverty. And a lot of people tend to listen to me, but they don't understand what I am saying to them. And I've also explained how the weaponization of poverty is aligned to the weaponization of ignorance. And I've explained how the two are integral to the preservation of the state of impunity, which is required to maintain the feudal state. Because Nigeria is essentially a feudal state. There are laws for a certain class, there's another for another class, so you don't have citizenship in that space. So when Buhari says that he has been successful with the economy, he's telling the truth. He has successfully weaponized poverty in Nigeria. He came in as clueless as they said Jonathan was, and he was truly clueless because he meant well, but he was clueless. But this one, he never meant well for me and you or for the average Nigerian. He always meant poverty for each and every one of us because that is what his class requires to maintain his hold on power. He met dollars at 150. Today, dollar is 611. The gullible, useful idiots who are selling their votes for 10,000 naira in Ekiti. Before Buhari came to power, that 10,000 naira would have bought them a bag of rice. Today, it wouldn't even get them up to a quarter of a bag. Or, I think maybe a third of a bag. That's all they will get for the 10,000 naira that they sold their votes for. But they have been rendered sufficiently impecunious, hungry, and impoverished to the point where the 10,000 naira meant something to them because there is nothing to their votes any longer. So Buhari, he has sufficiently weaponized poverty. He has left the economy in shambles. He has destroyed the manufacturing bases. Yes, he met a bad situation, but he has damaged it irreparably. I've said it before and I'll repeat it.
Now, let me get your view on this. And based in summary, what kind of legacy will President Major General Muhammadu Buhari be leaving behind as we head to 2023 general elections?
Buhari is the best thing to have ever happened to Nigeria. So I thank him for that.
Wouldn't that be an irony to say he's the best thing to have happened to
Well, anything that serves to dispel illusions, that serves to clarify issues, that serves to clarify them as well, should be commended. His brazen nepotism, his inability to play the Nigerian game of hypocrisy. He has never managed to hide his ethno-religious bigotry. He has shown by his extremities that Nigeria had been existing on lies and pretenses. The person in office, the character of the person in office, to a very large extent, blinded a lot of Nigerians to the structural inequities and deficiencies. But his own crass nepotism is very unapologetic about his nepotism. It has helped to highlight the structural imbalances, the inequities, the injustices, because his reactions and reflexes are completely prebendal in nature, very, very, very myopic in the extreme. At all points in time, if you are not speaking Fufude, you better be speaking Hausa, and you had better make sure that you are a Muslim, a fundamentalist for that matter, and then you are acceptable to him.
What is your reading of the political turf in relation to those who the parties have actually presented as their presidential candidates, from Tinubu, Atiku, whom you've given the appellation Etiku, so to speak, and Peter Obi?
Let me put it this way. Atiku, or Etiku as I prefer to call him, because me, I'm not going to personalize Iku. Once you use the ha in Yoruba language, you've personalized. So me, I'm not one of the Atiku brigade. I'm not dying anytime soon if it pleases my maker. So I prefer to use Etiku. For those who have embraced him, they might jolly well decide to die with him. That's their own wahala. My own point is this. Etiku has been in the public space long enough, and he's been properly defined in that space. He's a man closer to 80 than 70. Nigeria is a young nation. Or rather, sorry, I fell into that error. It's a young country because it's not a nation. It's a collection of nations. It certainly does not require the baggage of an old man, integrity challenged, whose co-accused is in jail somewhere. It cannot be that our president requires state immunity before he might travel to certain parts of the world. That does not make any sense. That is aside from all the integrity baggage. His former principal, Obasanjo, defined him properly enough. Not that Obasanjo is exactly a gospeler of truth, but he has sufficiently defined, they defined themselves in the public space sufficiently for us not to have to debate him. The APC candidate, on the other hand, Chief Emilokan, the fact of the matter is that it speaks volume about the kind of country we have become if a major political party, quote and unquote, would present him as his presidential flag bearer. But again, I repeat what I have said severally. One, I don't consider him a candidate. When you watch the unfolding political realities in northern Nigeria, even now, when we are still like 8 months away from the election, you will know that those who placed him on the throne that they've dug all around, they knew what they were doing. He just fell into that game. But that's political permutations about winnability or not. But I had said back in February 2020, February 24th, to be exact, I had occasion to dredge it up recently. And I said at the time, and I posted it on my social media handle recently, I said, for the record, if it pleases God to keep me alive, and Nigeria were to find itself in the unfortunate position of having Bola Ahmed Tinubu succeed Muhammadu Buhari, I will proceed on exile before he will be sworn in, and shall thereafter renounce my Nigerian citizenship with uncommon alacrity. I said this before the NSAS protest. I said this before his role became known. I said it before we became aware of the full extent of the criminality of the Lagos State government, the LCC, controlled by the Lagos State government and Tinubu's nominees. I said all of this before I became aware of a murder plot on my life by elements of the Lagos crime family. I said this before I had raised a petition to the Nigerian police, which I submitted in the office of Akeem Odumosu, who is today part of the park management in Lagos State. I said this at the time before I submitted a petition naming the names of those involved in trying to murder me in Lagos State. I said this because I understand the unholy triumvirate in Lagos State, the trinity between the criminal state, the Nigerian police, and the crime families and elements on the street of Lagos State. I said all of this in February 2020. I said so because I know that the reflexes of the powers that be in Lagos State are essentially criminal. It's not about being corrupt. Corruption is not unique to Lagos State. But if I submitted a petition in, well, I think this was, interestingly, it was later in 2020, I believe, I submitted a petition naming names. The commissioner of police at the time, to whom that petition was submitted, is part of park management today under MC Mushroom Pikin. Now you tell me that someone like me can coexist in a state like Lagos, already criminally captured and controlled by Tinubu and his gang. I can coexist in the same state if he becomes the president of Nigeria. I'll be a fool to hang around. He'll be suicidal. I said this long before he gained the ticket of his party. So when people are interpreting what I said in 2020, they need to be placing it in context to understand clearly that unlike them who are reacting in time, I spoke in the womb of time, understanding the existential evil with which I am dealing. But I really don't believe that he stands any chance of winning. That's the truth. Where is he going to win? Where? Even this Lagos State, let me be very clear. A viable candidate comes out for governorship in Lagos, Oladele Tomilola Farotimi is going to be behind that candidate, campaigning clearly to the hearing of all and sundry. There is enough of this criminal capture of a state. It has to end someday. And we have to draw the line somewhere. And I think this is actually where it gets drawn. It's the Icarus hubris. Just because you've captured one state, extended territory to other parts, what good does it do? And then some idiots will be telling me Yoruba Ronu, Yoruba Lokan. What kind of Yoruba Lokan? 23 years in Lagos State, what has it battered? How many schools has it built? How many hospitals? How many roads? What has been the benefit to those of us who live in Lagos and call it home? You can paint road, you can go ahead and be doing the expressway, put toll gates here. That's another, but go off the expressways, go into the schools. How many people who benefited from Jakonde schools in this country today, in this state, and even beyond Lagos State? I'm not from Lagos State. I came to Lagos State in 1995. I came in 95. It took, see me, I'm getting old now. I actually came to Lagos State in 1985 to enter LASU. LASU is the fruit of Jakonde's vision. He dreamt it up, he envisioned it, he started it off, he wasn't there anymore. I came, and a whole generation of Lagosians went to LASU. How many of us who went to LASU in that time can send our children back to LASU now? How many secondary schools? How many primary schools? So when people are talking to me about Yoruba, I just look at them like they've become sophisticated morons, just like Nana called them. sophisticated morons arguing on behalf of your enslavers to validate your enslavement. Exactly what as is hegemony battered either for Lagos State or for the Yorubas themselves. A history of land seizures, avaricious grabs of other people's patrimony. They will be waving the free trade zone as though the free trade zone is a success story. It is a story of avarice. How many communities have been rendered homeless in that place? So you've paid them compensation. Well, look, I don't want, there is a lot about the question. This Tinubu one is personal. I live in Lagos State. Everything I own in the world is in this town. I do not intend to leave this town for anybody. So that one is personal.
Well, let's get this clarity. You made an assertion that there are no clear cuts for Tinubu winning the presidency. I mean, but against all odds, he grabbed his party's ticket.
How happy did his party's president, General Buhari, how happy was he looking? How happy are the lot of those who should be behind him? Look, let's be clear about something.
Yeah.
A man goes to Abeokuta, a generally taciturn man when it comes to the deployment of power. You went to Abeokuta and you started hearing a Milokan, you are hearing a Lei. That was a man ready to capsize the boat. That's my own reading. That the party that had announced a consensus candidate, or unless you are saying that Adamu was just on a frolic of his own, which he couldn't have been. If he now managed to call them out because he had been plotting and waiting, which is the height of the frustrations that brought out a Milokan. The man was speaking honestly when he said a Milokan. They sat in their coven and agreed what to do. What they agreed in their coven, we didn't know until they came outside to start telling us. And the man was emphatic. He said he went to the man. The man was weeping on TV. He went to him and he said to him, look, we can build an alliance capable of winning this election. You run. And he was to run as the man's vice. But of course, we know sufficiently now that Shola Saraki's ambition for the Senate presidency, and being the wily politician that one is, he could see clearly that if there is a Muslim ticket, his own chances of becoming the Senate president would have been destroyed. So of course, he was one of those who kicked against a Muslim ticket, and they've said sufficient in the public space for us to piece it together. So it is clear that truly, based on the agreements reached within their coven, Emilokan, it was his turn truly. But it was his turn to do what? To carry their party's ticket. Carrying the party's ticket is one thing. Winning the election is another ball game entirely. Are the Northern power brokers prepared to trust him with power? That's one. The second thing is this: even if they are willing to trust him with power, is it only the Northwest and Northeast that makes presidents? And is it the only person they will vote for in the Northwest and Northeast? They won't vote for their own Atiku. Kwakwanso will not win. Don't forget that in the last election, I believe Atiku lost even in the Northeast, which is his own zone. So Atiku would lose again, but this time around he will lose to Tinubu, but he will get some votes. And then come to the North Central. Is Tinubu is actually going to get the people of the North Central to vote for him? The man who was in Ondo State looking for cattle when Sister Funke was killed. They know that for him is about power. Anything is negotiable. He doesn't look when it comes to the actual election. Tinubu would have to understand that even in Yoruba land, we would ask questions of him.
Yeah.
He's not going to have a home run here. Because we are done with this game of, is our turn. Our turn to do what? To enslave? To do what? The only thing that is certain under a Tinubu government, now I'm not talking APC, I'm saying Tinubu as a person, the only thing that is certain is that he will empower all the criminals in the society, all the agberos will take over, they would have immunity from all kinds. Already in Lagos State, we're hearing stories of how Okadas cannot drive, they can't ride if they are not wearing vests, advertising his candidacy. In Lagos State, or agberos will begin to drag them. So that's the level of criminality that is already normal in this space. So when we are talking about when the time comes, election hasn't started. The beauty of the current situation that most people are not paying attention to is the fact that unlike before, the last election, 2019, I believe we had less than 4 months between the emergence of candidates and the actual elections. This time around, we had close to 9 months and we are still 8 months away from the elections. Maybe they are just asking for certificates now. Yeah. And the scrutiny is currently on Tinubu. Scrutiny will soon fall on other persons as well.
Exactly. Let me also take you up on that. I mean, the social media had been agog and ecstatic about Tinubu's certificates, scandal, so to say, as he refused to report the primary school and the secondary school he attended while submitting his form to INEC. And this has actually got a lot of responses and reactions on social media. It's just not now that Tinubu had been dogged with the issue of his certificate. What are your response to these issues?
Here is the thing with this Tinubu certificate. I think because Buhari has lowered the bar, in fact, not just lowered the bar, Buhari has pulverized the bar. We have a president who we know does not have a school certificate. They will tell us he's a general, he attended courses, but so the standard has been destroyed, so anybody can actually aspire. So it's not really about certification. When you begin to demand Tinubu's certificates, these are actually code words for demanding to know who he is. It's not really about certification. Obviously, Mobile would have gleaned some sort of certification that they must have verified before they would have employed him. My imagination. I'm also so useless with figures.
As a matter of fact, there was actually a report that it was prior. There was a report on social media that prior to his some certain verification exercises at Mobile, that was when he decided to resign from Mobile.
Oh, okay. Now this is news to me, but what I do know is this: the demand to see his certificates for someone like me has nothing to do with demanding to know whether he's educated or not. He's obviously educated. But we're in a situation where we're dealing with a man whose name we really don't know, whose date of birth we really don't know. We don't know who went to primary school with him. Nobody knows. Once upon a time, I was told it was GCI, until some people were asking what set he went to GCI with. And then they now started this form filling thing, and they are saying you didn't go to primary school, you didn't go to secondary school. Unknown soldiers carted away your certificates. All these are questions not of certification, but of character.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, global citizens of the world, depending from which side of the world you are joining us in this program. My name is Charles Solomon Ako, Esquire, FIMC, CMC, MITD. I am the State Publicity Secretary of All Progressives Congress, Enugu State. Very good. That's a very good question. The preparation for the election, which starts from a robust campaign, been undertaken by the presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The team is doing well. The campaign training is moving very well. And also, we are blessed by the support from the father of the nation, the president of this country, President Muhammadu Buhari. We are blessed that he endorsed our own candidate, our own party candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And he has been following the campaign train to many states. You have seen what has happened in some of the northern states, and also we are seeing what has happened even in the southern states here, when Bola Ahmed Tinubu visited my own state, Enugu State. So the campaign is moving well. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is somebody that have grown so much in the democratic process and the groups of this country. He has paid his dues. He's a leader of leaders. He's a father of leaders. He has incubated so many leaders. Only him I can single out among all our political leaders that have spread both from the north and from the south. Only him I can single out to be a person who have developed leaders from the cradle. You can see the personality of the kind of leaders he has developed. Even the present vice president of the country, he developed from him. Even the minister for power, Fashola, he developed from him. Even Abadaba Amila, he developed from him. And there are hosts and many of them. So this is somebody who have developed governors, who have supported governors, who has built leaders across board, captains of industries, across states, without any sentiment, without knowing the boundaries, without knowing the tribal limits. So this is a person we haven't seen. And then the party is so blessed also by giving him the candidate, the flag of the party to fly, because he's somebody that I know and I trust. I lived in Lagos during his regime. He developed Lagos from being a dungeon to becoming a talk of the town in the whole West Africa. Lagos today being what he is a child's plan. It is his own baby. It's a pet project to him. He developed and made sure that Oshodi and Ajegunle have moved out from being a swamp to a very good city now that even people like to go and visit. Like before, people don't move around Oshodi with your bag on your hands. Instead, you'll find another bag to hide it in your, almost put it in your stomach. So Bola Ahmed Tinubu is well poised, is well positioned, and the campaign train is moving very well. And the acceptability is also what we have to talk about. Is well accepted. Both the Muslim, both the Christians, both the traditionalists, they all accept his candidature. They accept his candidature not because they're gaining anything from there, because he has done wonders in Lagos. And we want him to replicate that wonder he has done in Lagos by turning Lagos around, turning the fortunes of Lagos around, then to do it at a wider circle for our nation, Nigeria. Saying about having advantage of getting wide acceptance in Southeast, which is been reduced by the emergence of the Labour Party candidate Mr. Peter Obi. Yes, it is a truth, but it is not something that you could give a wider or higher mark. Percentage of acceptability has been something that follows from results of individuals, even when they are not at this position to contest for this present position they are now vying for. Peter Obi was a governor of Anambra State when Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State. If you put both of them side by side, then you can now estimate, you can now analyze, you can now attach figures to them to kind of democratic dividends, the they have given to individual states. It was to turn Lagos. Anambra is a model state due to infrastructure and the position, it's a debated position. Anambra has a lot in commerce, just as Lagos has. But what stops Peter Obi to now turn Anambra's fortune around to be able to attract people from all walks of life, from all states to come to Anambra? That is just one indices. Then you now look at also the infrastructural development during their period. The infrastructural development in Lagos State is over and over higher than that of Anambra. Not minding that there was a time the federal allocation was even denied to be given to Lagos State. The federal allocation that is accruing to them was denied for 30 years. And this man called Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu factored a way out. Some states were crippled under such kind of circumstances. So these are the things. So the antecedents of one will also play a vital role. Then you also come to a kind of trust base. Trust base are also being built on the kind of whom you are, on the kind of the personalities you are. Are you steady? If you tell me you are here today, will you be here tomorrow? I meet you here. So we also look at this. So if you come to trust factor, you could see that you will trust Asiwaju more. Asiwaju has been consistent with his political pursuit. He has been consistent with his political ideology. He has been consistent with his political family. He has been consistent with his political party. Unlike probably when it comes to Peter Obi has moved from APOGA, which gave him a very laudable platform to fly, to be known, to be popular. He has left the party. He has moved from that APOGA to PDP. From PDP, he has moved from PDP to Labour Party. Who knows tomorrow? He may also move from this Labour Party to APC. So consistency is a very big factor when it comes to build a trust or talk of a trust. And the trust we are talking about here is a trust built on the 4 pillars of core principles. The core principles are C for competence, O for openness, R for reliability, and E for effectiveness and efficiency. So if you are not open, no matter whatever you are, people will not rely on you. If you are not competent, people will not trust in you. So I believe that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has shown these core principles over and over and over. So I think also it is a very big credibility and credence to our country to have a personality with a strong will, a personality with determination and commitment, a personality with a productive mind at this particular time in Houston to be the president of the country. We cannot go and entrust the treasure of this country to somebody who have already told us that he's a trader. All he knows is to trade. So what happens to our production line? What happens to our production line? And we cannot also entrust the treasury of this country to a hand that will prefer the children to die while he keeps on saving money If your children die, I wonder who will eat the money that you are saving. So these are the factors we have looked into. Remove sentiments and emotions. Remove that, yes, in Southeast, we have a very strong candidate. He's strong, but his strength is unquote. His strength should be defined. His strength should be analyzed to know the kind of strength and aspect of strength he has. It is really a very unfortunate thing, the kind of insecurity we are witnessing in the Southeast. Actually, it is very troublesome. It is very mind-breaking. It is short. My mind beats, my heart bleeds whenever I hear or read from the news that we have lost a life. Whenever I hear that infrastructure has been destroyed and vandalized, because these are people's money, these are people's life, and life has no duplicate. Actually, the fear of the unknown is actually being projected and being carried on by the people within, because a thief in the house is only the one that will tell the thief outside where there is fish in the kitchen. So I appeal to people this: we cannot afford to destroy our own. We cannot afford to destroy the same infrastructure that we should be looking for money to build by tomorrow. Election is coming. We are a few days away from election. I am appealing to just 11 days to election. I'm appealing to my people. This is a time to come together. This is a time to shift our thought in all that we have been interested in the past. We have to build the unity of this country. We have to be a partaker in the building project of this country. As of now, we have no country of our own except Nigeria. So we must be partakers. We must show that we are committed to its viable growth. So the election should not be seen, because I've been hearing from some quarters that some people are sending messages to jettison the election. If you jettison the election, we are doing ourselves more harm than good. We are doing ourselves more harm than good. If you don't participate in taking decision of who will rule this country, then any kind of number that participated and take the majority, they will rule all of us. So a kind of having a voter apathy, I am telling my people that is not the best. Even if any person is nursing that as a feeling, even if any person is incubating that as an idea to sell to people, it's not the best. Yes, it is the people's will that are going to count in this election. The people's mandate that are going to count in this election. It is not party per se. We also look at personalities that are in. However, PDP, being a party that have stayed so long in Enugu State, close to 20 years, in Enugu State, they have taken our people for granted. They have taken the people of Enugu State for granted. If not in this present time, there will never a time that we had vibrant opposition party in Enugu State. It has never been. So it is only this 2022 with phenomenal approach that vibrant opposition parties has emerged. APC has emerged as a vibrant opposition party to fight for power, to restore power. And the people's will, which has been taken for granted for a long time, has been assuaged to support All Progressive Congress, because they look at the party having strength from the federal, we have what it takes to take power. One, first and foremost, we presented a governorship candidate that is a businessman, is a candidate that has nothing in common with all the government in the past in the state. He was not their contractor. They didn't do any contract with them. He didn't work with them, maybe as any appointment level, maybe as an SA or commissioner or whatever. He didn't. So we have taken a very clean person, a person with integrity, a person with character, a person that is honest, a person that is intelligent, and moreover, a person that is humble. That is the kind of candidate we parade to take over the Lion Building come 11th March 2023. It is the people now that have assessed the quality of our candidate, his manifesto, his ideology, his belief, and the people are now saying, this is the kind of man that we want. It is only him that is on record, that he has traveled the whole of Turan.
This morning, and we're sorry that we have to cut short regular programming at this point in time, because we're having feed from the National Coalition Center at the INEC in Abuja, where the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakub, is addressing the press conference. We'll be going live to the National Coalition Center, and let's hear the updates of what he has to say to Nigerians.
My name is Chinaza Zabushi. We've received reports that some persons are having a hard time locating their products. I want to know what the commission is doing to address it, especially because channels, I guess, they told Nigerians that no one will be disenfranchised. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman. My name is Miobi Fenty. You have acknowledged that pooling the distribution of materials arrive late in some pooling, and that is not the fault of the vendor. And that time has been taken. Are you considering extending the time beyond 2:30? And secondly, just got report that Boko Haram terrorists launched an attack in Gaza, Togo State, and some of them injured, including elections. Have you received any information, any action taken? And secondly, one of the vice presidential candidates and the governor of the state went to their polling unit for Borno State as of 11 o'clock. The men were not. So, are you taking action regarding some of these issues? If harvest stage that approved, so 11:30, knowing materials, same thing in federal housing estates. Only please respond to some of the Thank you.
Okay, I pray your indulgence to respond to these issues quickly so that we go back to our station. The next brief will be at conference. So let me start with the rise to the difficulty locating polling units. That is why before the election, we embarked on a campaign encouraging citizens to identify their polling units. We have 6.7 million citizens in that respect, and quite a number of them have done so. I actually expected complaints that we are going to receive from people who do not locate their polling units will be louder than that. We tried to solve a 25-year-old problem in this country, expanding voter access to polling units, which we successfully did in 2021. Before then, the delimitation of polling units was the one done by the old NECON, not INEC, in 1996. Doing so means redistributing some voters to polling units. The law empowers the Commission to create polling units trying to allot voters to them. That is population increase, movement, two simple ways by which citizens could locate their polling units ahead of election day. One of which was our website. But the other one, which is simpler, is we provided 2 telephone numbers which you can send a simple text message indicating your state, your surname, and the last 6 digits of your voter identification number. And you will receive a message telling you that this is your polling unit. We appreciate that not all Nigerians have smartphones or access to the internet. And that's why when we send the lists to the states, we ask them to engage in those voters that we may have redistributed to some of the polling units and also engage in publicity in the local language. So these are some of the steps that we took. In fact, very interestingly, a friend of mine was very angry. We moved the person from one polling unit in Abuja to another polling unit. And he sent me a message to say that the Commission has no powers under the Constitution. After all, how can you move into a polling unit without my consent? Well, I quoted the section of the law. And I called him. I said, why are you so angry? He said, no, I'm not angry. I said, read the message carefully. We said you have been moved from a congested to a more convenient polling unit in the same premises. So in other words, you don't have to walk long distance. Then he looked at the message and said, sorry, actually I didn't read the message. I thought you moved me to another town. So, but we have been to school, we should be able to read and understand messages. So if there are Nigerians who are unfortunately still unable to locate their polling units, I apologize on behalf of the Commission, but voting has not ended. You can still send text message to the numbers that we have provided. They are on social media platforms. They are also on the hard copies of the information we share here early this week on the number of premises collected. And you in the media can help us before voting ends for people to know how they can locate their polling units and to vote on the election day. Our intention was never to disenfranchise Nigerians, but to make it more convenient for Nigerians to vote easily. Unfortunately, some of the polling units are still congested. Because what happens on Nigerian, they prefer to be left in the congested polling units, some for security considerations. But we feel more secure while we have been voting, even if the units are contested, and taking us to a less populated polling unit, which may be some distance away from our comfort zones. So these are the steps that we're taking, and this is the rationale for voter redistribution. Mayor Ogidi, I have answered your question partially in my opening statement. I said that no Nigerian will be disenfranchised. Yes, we opened the polling units late. And we admitted that in some cases the polling units were open late. But the system has an automatic mechanism for recovering lost time. We don't start 8:30 and close 2:30 on the dot. If we start later than 8:30, whoever is on the queue for 2:30 will vote, no matter how long it takes. So no Nigerian will be disenfranchised on that score, provided that person is at the polling unit before 2:30. You talked about one of the vice presidential candidates unable to vote in the Maiduguri Metropolitan Council. We are following and tracking the challenges we have in 2 locations in Borno State, the Maiduguri Metropolitan Council and Jeri. So we're tracking that. Voting hasn't ended. We're sure we'll overcome whatever challenges. Every Nigerian will have the opportunity to vote. Then finally, we talked about the attack on some of our officials in Gaza. We're tracking that one as well. Should I say bandits or some insurgents that were firing from the mountaintop in Gaza, just firing at random. That was what we were tracking before we had to come to briefing. So we continue to 4:30. We should be in a position to give further update. I thank you very much. The work continues. See you at 4:30.
Thank you, brother. We'll be here at 4:30 for the next round of update from the commission. Thank you.
I will ask you to come out.
No, but I'm busy. Later.
Yeah, welcome back. We just had the press briefing by the INEC chairman, Professor Yakub Mahmood, actually addressing some of the issues that have been and challenges that have been confronting the voting process since morning, particularly areas where electoral officers did not arrive on time together with the voting materials. These are issues that they said they've been trying to to contend with, and they assure in his statement, he said, our intention is never to disenfranchise Nigerians. He reiterated that no Nigerians will be disenfranchised because the system has a recovery system where that whoever is on the queue before 2:30 will be allowed to cast their ballot. He also addressed some of the issues of the places where there has been reported cases of violence, and he stated that they were doing something about it. We will still get more information with regards to some of the highlights of what INEC chairman actually stated there. With us in the studio to analyze the election as well as other issues surrounding the election is Professor of Political Science in the Department of Political Science, Lagos State University, Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine. It's a pleasure having you on Sahara TV, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Prof, you are aware of what has been happening this morning with regards to the process. And questions are being raised as to the credibility of this process despite the challenges. Contrary to the promises that INEC had given, we've had reports of late arrival of electoral officers, officials, and voting materials at a lot of places across the country. And this is becoming a worrying situation to most Nigerians. Let me get your view of the overall assessment of the process so far, in your view. How has INEC done?
Well, I think there's a beaten track in terms of election processes since 1999 in Nigeria. You know, often characterized by late arrival of voting materials, you know, all kinds of logistic problems. You know, we have always encountered them in Nigeria. Violence also has always been, you know, an issue. But of course, what is unique now is that nobody's talking about ballot, you know, snatching. And so the capacity of INEC officials to address these shortcomings within the time allotted for voting is what is of the essence in these, you know, situations. Mahmood Yakubu, the INEC chairman, has assured that they will address some of these, shortcomings.
In fact, he actually stated that accreditation and voting will continue and not end by 2:30 p.m., particularly in cases where ANEC staff came late and materials are not on ground.
And I think that is reassuring for, voters who are likely to encounter that problem of, being able to vote within the stipulated time. That flexibility, pragmatism is required in managing election processes.
It was also addressing areas where we had areas where, for example, I think he mentioned Borno, where bandits are firing at random at the top of the mountains in Gwoza. Questions have been raised as to the security architecture of the country and the impact it's going to have on the electoral process. How much of this do you see impacting the processes?
I must say so far that we've been fortunate. Given the overall security situation in the country, the activities of Boko Haram, ISWAP, in northeast of the country, the generalized banditry, in the middle belt and northwest. Of course, men, ESN, Ebubuagu, all of them in the southeast. All of these were going to present serious security, problem, despite assurances, from the security agencies in the country. People expect that there will be surprises and the rest of them. So far, we are fortunate because it has not assumed the scale which, I was expecting on election day. Because I've always talked about an election day surprise that could force a force majeure in ways that the election may not hold. And then the speculated military government team will not come into the picture. So far, we have not had that. But as we say, it's not over until it is over.
That's serious. Looking at experiencing worst of times, considering the state of the economy at this point in time, Nigeria's economy, according to some economic analysts, is the fact that the economy has totally collapsed. We have the case of the now redesigned policy of this government that has created a lot of tensions. We've had cases of protest and violence in some other areas. Has this in any way affected or impacted these elections in any way at all, in your own view and your own perspective, sir?
It is difficult to measure.
Please go ahead, sir.
It is difficult to measure the impact, of this currency redesign, policy. But I want to, provide a caveat.
Okay.
The caveat is that Nigeria has become a banana republic, where all kinds of anti-politics, prevails. Things that are against what is normal. That's what happens. And whatever officials of government tell us about the redesign policy, I think it's a policy fiasco. It's a major faux pas that I think that within the context of the elections, the government ought not to have embarked on that. Of course, we now know that there's a latent function, an ulterior motive, which the president made public, that they wanted to stop vote buying, by those who have money bags.
Now, have they achieved that?
In that? So, for me, the policy is counterproductive, and of course, underscore the monumental failure of the incumbent administration. The government has not performed in any sterling way since 2015. It has been one of policy calamity at one point or the other. And one would have expected that in its twilight it will end well, but it has not ended well. But what is clear is that the party, the ruling party, appears to be fighting itself. Because the so-called vote buying team is targeted at its own flag bearer, who is seen as, stupendously rich and has the capacity, to buy his way, through. So for me, it's been counterproductive because money, as we said, it's just a measure of value. It's a means of exchange, and therefore, it's backed by authority, which is the legitimacy that it has. And so any other thing can represent that value. So if you say that a telephone handset is a means of exchange, and once it's generally accepted, within the national, territorial boundary of any country, so it becomes. So money as a means of, as value laden can be expressed in different ways. You can decide to give a car to somebody, it is money. You can decide to give a television set to somebody, it is money. You can decide to give fan, whatever bicycle to anybody, it is money. Because when you sell it, you get cash, which is a mix of exchange and value laden. So, and I think the country is unfortunate to have the kind of CBN governor that we have. I'm not quite sure whether he read economics. I'm not quite sure how much of versatility, he has, even as a banker. He's coming from is it the Zenith Bank background? I don't know, but appointments that are based on political considerations ignore, efficiency and capacity of individuals, and that is the bane of most third world countries, especially Nigeria, where the only game in town is politics.
That's tough to digest. A lot of Nigerians are actually looking at the historical perspective, and we begin to see history repeating itself. This is not the first time a Buhari government is going to embark upon this so-called Naira redesign policy. He had done this way back in the 80s, and we're seeing a repeat of that. And questions are also being asked that this is a government that has been fraught with a lot of impunity, not only in virtually every sectors of the Nigerian polity. Talk about even with regards to judicial pronouncements and all the rest of them. Now, there had been certain judicial rascality, some call, or banditry, as some analysts will say, especially with regards to the recent ruling by the Supreme Court on this same Naira redesign policy. What's your take or position on federal government and the state governors who had actually taken the federal government to court with regards to this?
The Buhari administration has always been on the part of anti-politics, taking measures that subject, the rule of law, or that subjugates the rule of law, or erode, the rule of law. That has been the style of the government. And although he claimed in 2015 that he was a born-again Democrat, I'm not sure that that was true. That was just, political rhetoric to say that I'm a born-again, Democrat. He's a military dictator, and that dictatorship, or characteristics of dictatorship, hasn't left him. And I also wonder whether he has the capacity, to consider issues, even within the context of the complexity of modern governance. Military regime is unconstitutional, and there's nothing democratic about it. So they rule by decrees and edicts. So it is possible to take those policies and probably get away, with it. So doing those things that he did in the mid 1980s, or early 1980s, in 2023, without learning lessons from that past, is the height of administrative, inefficiency. A government is supposed to have a cabinet both made up of technocrats, as well as politicians. And so the technocrats are supposed to do the thinking, taking through policies before they are made public at the end of the day. But I'm not sure that you can say somebody is in charge here. So policy has become, so eccentric that you cannot predict what happens next. And I am not even sure whether it is his business to redesign the Naira when he has few days left in office. But even beyond that, the argument is also that, in the last 20 years, we have not redesigned the Naira. If you want to redesign the Naira, you can do so seamlessly. We saw Britain, when of course they changed was it 15 Naira?
$50.
15 Naira
Pound.
note.
Okay.
Note. Came into circulation without any views about how it came and it blended. So this was, deliberately designed to achieve some political purposes. But whether it has reduced vote buying, the outcome of this ongoing process will tell us, to what extent it has impacted on the process. But I think that it has not. That is why I tell you that money being a value-laden entity as a means of exchange can mutate, can take different forms, assets and other things. So politicians are always able, to take their way through. And I think where they miss the point is that political culture cannot be decreed out. You deal with political culture through socialization. And that socialization, develops into what we call hegemony. That people begin to act in certain ways without being told to do so. So we have not done that. When you have good policies, when governance becomes very, very positive and achieve governmental goals, to the general well-being of our people, the people will realize they need to vote for candidates that have something to offer. Not candidates who go to the National Assembly, they sit and don't utter a word throughout parliamentary sections. And at the end of the day, they come back in 4 years to ask people to vote for them. So people will revolt against that process. And I think that the greatest legacy the outgoing regime would have bequeathed to Nigerians would have been, what I call the reification of the rule of law.
No.
Because if you look at the state level, the governors behave like emperors. So if the government at the center was open and following due processes at the state levels, the position, the way they run the place like an empire of their own wouldn't be there. Surrogates. The houses of assembly across the, so
they want like appendages.
So really, we have not consolidated our democracy. Rather, what we have, Nigerians have, is what Thandika Makandiwere, a long time ago, classified as choiceless democracy. That's what we have.
Choiceless democracy indeed. Now let's look at the major contenders in these elections. I'm talking about the candidates. To be elected as president of Nigeria, one must win the popular votes and 25% of the votes in at least 24 of the 36 states. Now, considering including the Federal Capital Territory, thank you, sir. From your perspective, I mean, you are historically a political scientist. What are the the permutations and combinations of the possibility of anyone imagine, considering the challenges, considering the critical battleground states?
I have analyzed, I have taken on the ongoing political process from the point of view of what I call power politics.
Okay.
But there are other variables, such as the demographic, and of course, identity, politics. Those issues are there. But the first thing is to look at the power blocks in the country. There are two major power blocks in the country, and I have emphasized that: the Northern Power Block and the Southwest Power Block. And the Northern Power Block is in control of the Nigerian state currently.
Yeah.
And the current government came about through an alliance with the Southwest Power Block. And by whatever promises, pledges they made when they were hammering the coalition that became APC, the power is supposed to go to the Southwest, bloc. And so that's what is a contention. But the Northern Power Bloc, which is always hegemonic in nature, is trying to subvert those gentleman, agreements that they enter into when the party was being, hammered out, that was being put together, So there is a reluctance.
But there have been denials, sorry to cut you short, there have been denials that there were no gentleman agreements. There were never even any agreements in the first instance.
Of course, if you don't have a path written in black and white, anybody can deny. But you and I know that Buhari was not put in power with the support of the Southwestern Bloc, Power Bloc, with the fact that the North should continue, indefinitely in power.
True.
It is not. Whatever denial they make. So, but what is clear is that the Northern Power Bloc, elements of the Northern Power Bloc, let me not put all of them in the same bracket, are trying to subvert that, understanding that power should return to the Southwest. And perhaps to the Southwest Power Bloc, that was the key element, in the alliance that brought about, APC. That is the point to make. And therefore, they have opened the second front to retain power. And that second front came through the PDP platform with the subversion of their internal constitutional arrangement to produce a northern candidate, which is Atiku Abubakar. So that is what you... And so when you look at all of this, now, it therefore means that the likelihood that the Northerners, or a section of the Northerners, will vote for their own candidate, which is Atiku, But of course, that vote will be split because you have a Kwankwaso, who is also, has
a formidable force, exactly.
Followership in the North, And so they will be split. Now it is already too late to talk about Kwankwaso stepping down. But we wouldn't know whether there's backroom arrangement in which calls have been made that all Northerners, should vote for, Atiku Abubakar. We wouldn't know anything about that. But of course, groups in the North have come out, including Arewa Leadership Forum, some Islamic organizations.
Exactly.
That the North should vote for, Atiku. Now, when you then come to the Southwest, Tinubu candidacy has transformed from a Miloko to Awaloko. So, whereas Tinubu may not be able to take Lagos in one fell swoop, but Tinubu is going to take the rest of the Southwestern, states. So, that is where the identity factor, which is ethnic belongation, comes in, So there are also a section of the North that will vote for Tinubu to say, look, we need not to betray this man who made it possible for Buhari to come into power. And we have seen that people like Ganduje, have the optics shows that he's genuinely supporting, Bola Tinubu. And so the political capital they can bring into the process will also possible victory, at the end of the day. But when you then come to the demographics, even at that, Southwest, by some breakdown, has close to about 17 million. While Northwest has about 24 million. So that tells you the balance of, forces in terms of demographic. We're also told that the youth constitute about 70% of the 93 million plus, registered voters. All of these youths, are they going to vote one way? Are they going to be split along ethnic, identity? I don't see all the youth voting one way. To understand the way the parties of the Fourth Republic are structured, they have loyalists, and those that loyalty is wedded together by patronage.
Yeah.
Patronage reward, process, and so that is going to split the youth, along. I say this because the Peter Obi's Labour Party has substantial followership in terms of we see it in urban areas. The youth support, for the candidacy. but the party does not enjoy a national spread, you know, as the two dominant parties, the PDP and the APC. That definitely will affect, you know, Peter Obi at the end of the day. And I mean, by the end of today, we would have